Hello everybody, it's Mike Levin SEO, helping you fight obsolescence with the latest installment of my Beat Back to Chaos on Windows 10 series. In this very special episode, Step 7, adding some virtual desktops. So right now I'm in full screen mode in Google Slides, and I can minimize it with a keyboard shortcut. And I can open another application, which is currently running, doing my screen recording. And it's not really in full screen mode, so you can see the taskbar and you can see the two icons in the taskbar. If I were to switch over here, those icons would disappear because this one is in full screen mode. So if I hit the escape key, take it out of full screen, you can switch back and forth between apps with your taskbar. Now that's nice when you go out of full screen mode, but when you're in full screen mode on your two different apps, even just switching, it becomes cumbersome. You can't rely on your taskbar. Luckily there is Alt-Tab, the old-fashioned Alt-Tab that has been in Windows since the beginning. And I'm going to switch OBS to full screen mode with the function F11 as well. And so here, with a Alt-Tab, I can choose which window I want to be on and alternate between them as so. Now it gets to be a little bit confusing and it's not very elegant. It doesn't give you a feeling of a real physical space. So in addition to this Alt-Tab combination, there's this new tab combination that is really wonderful. It's the Windows key with a tab. And it at first looks a lot like Alt-Tab. You can switch between your applications very similarly, but there's this button here that says New Desktop. New Desktop. I wonder what that does. Well, if you click it, now you have Desktop 2. You got Desktop 1 that has the two apps. See, when we mouse over, it shows the two apps, and Desktop 2 that has no apps, right? So we can jump to Desktop 2. And now I can use a four-finger swoosh. It's a little bit odd, but it's what Microsoft currently supports. It's similar to the Macintosh trackpad transition, but with a four-finger swoosh, I can switch back and forth between these two virtual desktops. Now, I still have both apps on the first virtual desktop and none on the second. Wouldn't it be nice to have one on each? So you go to the one that has the apps, and you use that same key combination, Windows key tab, and then you drop the one you want on the other desktop onto the other desktop. Now you can step into one and you can transition left and right. Isn't that better than Alt-Tab? Doesn't that give you a much better feeling of physical space, right? So say you wanted another virtual desktop, new virtual desktop. Now we have three, and I can jump between the three, and you see they're all in full screen mode, so you don't rely on the taskbar to switch you between apps. But say you wanted to use the taskbar, so I'll hit escape on Google Slide, and I'll switch over to this one, and I'll do function F11. Your keyboard shortcuts may vary, and so you see the virtual desktop with OBS only has the OBS icon down there, and the virtual desktop with Google Slide only has the Edge browser icon down there. That's a problem, so you can't really switch between them using the taskbar. So what you need to do is you go into Settings, and in fact, I'll do this from the third screen. Go into Settings, System, Multitasking. Then you scroll down to where you see Virtual Desktops, and the very first option, the default, is only the desktop I'm using. Well, you want to change that to all desktops. Some people accidentally turn virtual desktops on, and they never even know they're running some application on some other virtual desktop. But now you can see all three icons are there, and we can switch between them. Now it's in a really weird order. So if I were to switch here, jumps there. If I were to switch here, jumps there. And if I were to switch here, it goes there. It's very odd. So luckily you can pick these up and reorder them. The browser is first, OBS is second, and Settings is third. So go back one, go back another, jump to the right two to Settings. And it might be doing this popping transition because OBS doesn't record the built-in smooth transition that Windows 10 does. Windows 11 does not do it. It has the same popping. There's some issue going on there. But if you were to do the 4-finger swoosh, you can now see I've got 3 complete virtual desktops, places to work. And if I were to do Windows Tab, I could add a 4th and a 5th and a 6th, jump into it, and you see I've got now 3 more virtual desktops as places to work. Isn't that nice? And one of the best things about this is that all modern desktop operating systems, Windows, Mac, Ubuntu, because of GNOME, although it had it in Unity as well, but everything with GNOME, all KDEs, the Plasma desktop, they all have the equivalent feature, and their keyboard shortcuts are all even similar. So once you learn it on one system, you've pretty much learned it on all the systems. And when you're running software like OBS here, the Open Broadcast software, which is free and open source and available on all platforms and has the identical user interface on all platforms, you're starting to create your way off of Windows, right? And if your software is web software, same thing. The web user interface is the same across all platforms. So if you're working with mostly full screen apps, mostly apps that are available on all platforms, and preferably free and open source ones, so you can always get it readily. You can switch between hardware. You don't have all these licensing issues. You're making yourself operating system independent. It's good to be operating system independent. I could switch to the Mac tomorrow and I'd be just as comfortable. I could switch to Ubuntu desktop tomorrow, still, again, just as comfortable. I could probably switch to KDE Plasma, same thing. I've used them all over the years, and I can tell you their virtual desktop interfaces are all nearly identical. Some of them let you go more than left right. They let you go on an up-down grid, but I find that entirely too confusing. This is about as much as my brain can handle going left and right, and I usually use the first 3 windows for very special purposes. In fact, that first window is always a full screen Linux command line interface, which is what we're working towards here. So join me for the next video and I show you how to get the Windows subsystem for Linux onto your Windows 10 machine properly. So many people who go this route do it wrong and don't get full advantages. So I'm going to show you how to install WSL2. Join me.